Hello, Gen Genies. It's me, Julie.
And Rich.
Before we get started today, we want to let you in on some exciting news. We have launched our new Patreon page for the podcast.
Woohoo! We are super excited about this new chapter for CutOff Jeans.
So, Patreon is a website where listeners like you can pledge a small monthly amount. We're talking only $5 or $10, guys, to support the podcast and help defray the costs of bringing you the show each week.
To be clear, CutOff Jeans will continue to be absolutely free. But to thank you for your support, we are going to offer our patrons some fun little extras.
Like early access to the podcast every week, where you'll get to hear the latest episode before it's released to the general public.
And why not make your friends jealous with exclusive patron-only CutOff Jeans swag?
Fancy. And here's something you guys have been asking for, and I'm really looking forward to this. I'm going to host a monthly, hour-long, online Ask Me Anything session where patrons at the $10 level can literally ask me anything.
Anything? You're a brave woman, Julie.
You know, I know. I'm also going to give access to my blog, Are You My Father?, where I tell the story of my search, actually it's my life story basically, for my biological father in even more detail than I did on the podcast.
Wow, your blog was the original inspiration for CutOff Jeans, wasn't it?
It was.
Wow. Well, all patrons at any level will receive a shout out on the podcast along with our undying gratitude for your support.
Yep. You guys know that this show is a labor of love for me. It's something I'm very passionate about. It'd mean so much to me if you would consider supporting our work here on the podcast by going to patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
That's Patreon, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans podcast.
We'll add a link to it on the podcast and on the Facebook page. Thank you all, my Gen Genies.
And now, on with the show.
Woo!
Is your family tree a mystery? Are you fascinated by genealogy? Well, hip, hip, hooray, let's talk DNA with Julie.
The truth is in your genes.
In CutOff Jeans.
Welcome to CutOff Jeans, the podcast that helps you find your truth using nothing but DNA. I am Julie Dixon Jackson, and I'm a genetic genealogist, henceforth known as a Gen Genie.
And I am Richard Castle, the producer and co-host of this podcast. How are you doing, Julie?
Hey, I'm here. How are you?
I'm here as well.
We're both here, 3 blocks away.
What you been up to?
Well, I went on my annual camping trip this past weekend.
I thought you don't camp, you glamp.
It was a glamping trip, truth be told. There would be no camping. Camping is glamping. Me and a group of friends have an annual glamping extravaganza just north of Santa Barbara. I'm exhausted. It was supposed to be relaxing, but it just is a lot.
And why was it exhausting? Was it because of like trying to keep socially distant, or what was that?
The social distance thing was not difficult at all, because we just sat in lawn chairs in a circle and talked. Right. And we all had separate cabins. Yeah. So, and the kids, it was a bit hard to keep the kids separated, but they all wore their masks at all times. Mm-hmm. And, the first day was great. You know what? I did the beach 2 days in a row, and I never do that. And the beach is exhausting for me.
Why is it so exhausting? I mean, I know why. I mean, when you're
just all that
the sun, I know.
Yeah. And also truth be told, I've barely exercised in the last 5 months. So I walked more in that 48 hours than I have in the last 5 months.
Right.
And so that was exhausting, because I walked to and from the beach, was about a mile. Which, willfully, I could have driven.
It's good for you.
But it is good for you.
I just got a Fitbit. Okay, I've never had one
good
before.
For you.
And now,
how many steps are you trying to get?
I'm trying to get 10,000 a day, right? Because I walk the dog. Yeah. Although I barely make it. But the day that I cleaned the house, I did 20,000.
There you go.
Yeah, just going up and down the stairs.
Yeah, you have so many stairs in your house. But yeah, going up and down the stairs, I think, should get double points.
But just what I needed was a device to tell me how fat I am.
Yeah, I know.
Or how out of shape I am, or,
I have one of those somewhere.
What I like about it is it tells me how I slept. I don't even know how it does that, but it gives me a sleep score, and I like being rated.
I think it's making it up.
It does. It has something to do with your heart rate and I don't know, and the lack of motion, so it knows you're sleeping.
Well, I'll never sleep because I don't sleep.
But it's right. Like there were nights where I had terrible nights and it gave me a really poor score. And then nights where I slept more soundly and it was right. So it knew.
Well, there you go.
Well, I'm glad you're back and in one piece and now you can.
Thank you much. Hey, let's jump into it. Let's talk about this first thing that I know you noticed. Our friend of the show, Allison Hoskins-Levitt, posted that she loved hearing about your family and looked up some Russian Jewish information because she'd like to help. And she found the town I couldn't find.
Wasn't that nice? I was so touched by that.
Isn't that awesome? Yes. So I think it was Divanishek, which is what is in the records. And whatever country it was at the time, there's a different pronunciation. It is currently Lithuania, and it's Divaniscus.
Right.
Or something
it
like
looks
that.
like a really small town. Like when you look at it.
Yes. Well, and there's a list of all of the Minsk people that lived there.
Oh, my God. That is so cool.
So, but we haven't gotten to that yet because you have to pay for entry to that.
I see.
She might be able to come up with something for us, though. But yes, in Russian, it's Divanishki, Divaniskus in Lithuanian. Polish, it's Ziwaniski. Divanishok is Yiddish. That's why.
Right. You know what was funny was I thought it was so interesting how it said, okay, like what it was called or what country it was part of, pre-World War I. And then like between these years, it's amazing. The little town stayed, in the same place, but it was in part of like 4 different countries or empires.
Oh, yes.
Depending on the war, the borders.
Yes. With the borders change all the time, which is very confusing for genealogists.
I bet. Well, it's interesting because coming from the United States where we have these borders, and we've had them since the beginning. Well, of course we've expanded states, but as far as we've never been part of another country, not since we were part of the British Empire. It's just interesting to think of it in those terms. And the other part of it was it made me think, oh God, I wish my mom was alive because she loved this stuff and she would have had this confirmation that I got. Thanks to you and to one of our listeners, which was
Allison Hoskins-Levitt.
Yes, when she said something like, "Oh, I was hoping that you'd be related to my husband," and I looked at she's from New England as well, so I thought, oh, maybe we were, but I don't think we are. But still,
although you're both Ashkenazi Jews, so it's entirely
there.
possible.
You go. I was also an Oshkosh Bagosh Jew.
Everything matched. Oh no, that was Garanimals.
I thought the same thing, though. I wish there was Garanimals for adults. I would be much more fashionable because I would know how to dress.
That is so funny you said that because my husband is a bit of a snappy dresser. Like he dresses just to be in the house. He coordinates everything.
Really?
Yes. But he came in the other day and he just kind of stood there and went, And whenever he does that, that means I have something to tell you, but I want you to wonder about it first. And then, so I just looked at him waiting for whatever it was he wanted to tell me. And he said, "This is a well-matched outfit, isn't it?" And I said, "Huh?" And he goes, "Look, my hat matches my jeans and my shirt matches my shoes."
Oh, my.
And I went, "Oh, like Garanimals for adults." He didn't think that was funny.
When I had a job, I would go into work in my tie and I'd go up to the hostess at the front desk and I'd say to her, "Does this match?" And so sometimes she'd say, "Oh, it looks great," or "Yeah, I think so." And meaning she was being kind, and I was embarrassed the whole night, thinking, "Oh God, I'm wearing a tie that doesn't match because I can't tell."
Right, you can't differentiate between the colors. Well, now anything goes. I mean, when I was growing up, it was you do not wear brown shoes with blue pants. That was the rule. And apparently that's out the window. But that's one of those things that you learn as a child. And for some reason, it's ingrained as the way it's always going to be. Much like my mother thought that you should never have flowers in a hospital room because they'll suck the oxygen out.
Is that so? I mean, that's what she thought?
No,
I know it's not true.
Yes, that is what she thought. Yes, that is what she thought.
It's like
she said that.
Then you shouldn't have like anybody else in the room either because they could suck even more oxygen than the plant.
Right. I think it was more of like an ICU thing, and it has to do with the oxygen. I don't know.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know. But anyway, it was just something that she had heard, and it was a fact for her entire life.
That's interesting. We had my grandmother thought that having a bird in the house was a bad omen. Like in the house. And one time
she just didn't like birds.
Maybe.
You mean pets or one that flies in?
One that flies in. Yeah.
Oh boy, you're in trouble then.
I know. I've had birds coming in my house all my life. Come to think of it, that's why my life sucks.
That's probably your grandma.
Grandma was right.
I believe that birds are.
I know. We talked about that. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Here's another piece of interesting news. Bobby Ginder shared this to the group. Tom's brother.
Yes. Well, I don't believe I've ever met him.
You know what? He came and saw My Fair Lady, so you probably have met him.
Oh my gosh, how funny.
It was only 30 years ago.
It was longer than that, but okay.
Why don't you remember?
I still have the mug. I still have a My Fair Lady mug from that year.
You do?
I do. It's in my cupboard, yeah. A friend of mine from high school just posted a picture of a mug with his name on it. I gave it to him, like as a birthday gift back in high school. I mean, I didn't even remember it till he sent it to me and said, "Do you remember this, Rich?" And it was in the picture. It was sitting precariously on this like sofa arm, this round sofa arm. And I said, "Well, you won't have it for long if you leave it there."
Right.
But I couldn't believe he still had a mug that was that old. And then I realized I have a mug that's that old.
I wouldn't have a mug that's that old because I am known for breaking things on a daily basis in my house. Yeah. Ask my husband once again and his precious wine glass collection. So as of yesterday, Bobby said, a legal precedent was set in the state of Connecticut to amend a birth record using evidence from ancestry DNA. The judge wrote a 10-page opinion on the case for Connecticut law. And so basically now you can use this as a precedent for your own case.
And how might you do that?
I don't know. Well, because you cite precedents in arguments for something that you are asking for, and this would be one of them. Let's see. Her name is Jen Moniello. I'm saying her name because it was posted in Facebook, and I'm actually hoping to have an interview with her so she can talk all about it. So she lives in Connecticut. So this will only count if you're in Connecticut.
Oh, it's not a national thing.
Well, the precedent. Let me see. What did she say? It's official. I received my ruling today, which included a whole 10-page legal opinion. If you live in Connecticut, there's now a legal precedent. So there's a legal precedent in Connecticut, but you don't have to have been born in Connecticut because she was actually born in Florida.
I see. Okay.
So a little bit of it says from the judge's opinion says, clearly, as the petitioner correctly points out, a court faced with the question of paternity is no longer dependent upon fallible testimony. Through the remarkable advancement of genetic testing, science has virtually eliminated the proof problem. That's exciting.
That is exciting.
Yeah. I don't know. I get that people want to amend it. And I think it probably has to do with people's experience with their adoptive families. Or maybe not. I don't know. I just, I named my daughter after my mother. So I kind of like the name I was not born with, but I guess was given to me.
Right. But I mean, is this something that might help genealogists down the line, when they look back?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wait, there was something in Australia. I think Shane Buell posted about it. There was a ruling in Australia that I think going forward, both birth certificates will be issued automatically to adoptees.
Well, that's a good idea.
Here we go. Media release. New birth certificates to recognize adoption. Adopted people in New South Wales will be able to have both their birth and adopted families included on a birth certificate for the first time in the state's history following new reforms introduced to Parliament. So, yeah, that's a good positive step for the adoptee community.
Right. Amazing we're still fighting these battles like, it's 2020.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's true.
But, I think we always think in terms of history as like, oh, well, we're progressing. But I mean, it's really more of a pendulum. We progress and then we regress, clearly.
That's really true.
Yeah.
That's really true.
Yeah.
And that's never truer than.
Well, I think it's kind of a little collective ego to think that, oh, well, we know more than the people did 20 years ago or even 100 years ago. I mean, in certain things, maybe scientifically we do, but not necessarily in a human way.
Right. Right. Which really is the most important way, isn't it? Okay, really quickly, Blaine Bettinger posted in the Genetic Genealogy Tips and Technique group that Ancestry DNA has been purchased by the investment company, the Blackstone Group. This won't affect DNA testing, our results, etc. If anything, it will lead to improvements since they will want to increase subscribers. It sounds like big news, but it really isn't. And he also said, and a forewarning that there will be some sensationalism about this purchase among genealogists. So be sure to take what you read with a grain of salt. And I will listen to Blaine on that because he knows stuff. Mm-hmm. Blaine is also, he's a genetic genealogist and a lawyer.
Oh, that's a good combination.
Yeah. It's a good thing to know. Isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're a genetic genealogist, singer, dancer, performer, hairdresser, multi-hyphenate.
So many things. All right, did you happen to notice in the Facebook group something that I posted, some screen caps?
Oh, yes. This is about someone you were trying to get in touch with who was like a possible birth relative, right?
Possible birth father. Yes, possible birth relative. I mean, definite cousin.
And the person responded in a very negative way.
Threatening? It was a little threatening. Yeah, it's so funny because I just kind of wanted to show that this is kind of like par for the course for my job.
Right. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, Julie blocked out the names.
Yes, I did not identify anybody. All right. So I'll give you a little bit of a background. This client, before she hired us, she had I search angel work on it. Okay. And I did tell her, I said, search angels are pretty good. I will likely come up to a similar conclusion that she will. So just so you know, you may not get anything new from me, because I don't know what she did. So, and my conclusions were similar to her. I was able to narrow it down a little more, but it was a pretty convoluted, big family and lots of double marriages and stuff like that. But so there was this grouping of several families, series of brothers that it might be. And at that point, she told me, well, what about this guy? Do you think? I'm like, well, it could be. And she goes, well, he lived in the same town as my mother. Now, this is something that would have been beneficial for her to tell me in the beginning. Because that's important that they happen to be in the same random town at the same time.
Right. Like your birth mother and the Beatles, right?
Exactly. No, this was a smaller town, but yeah.
That's a callback. That's a callback from like an episode 30 episodes ago.
Rewind, everybody. No, more than that, I think. So she had spoken to him, and at first he was like interested, and I think then he realized that it probably is him and didn't want anything to do with it, so he blocked her. And he wasn't able to, and she wasn't able to contact him. This all happened before she hired me. So now we have this guy, and I'm like, well, I think you have your answer right there. There's two very significant reasons why it's probably him. And if he won't talk to you, he won't talk to you. And she goes, well, what, will you write him a letter? So I'm like, okay, I'll write him the letter. And I also wrote a letter to his daughter. And I never heard back from the letter, and she contacted me and said, so nothing, hon. I said, no. And she goes, well, why don't you call him? So I called all of the numbers that I have for him. Every single one of them was blocked or didn't go through or wasn't accepting messages.
Okay.
And she said, well, text him.
Oh my gosh.
So fine. So I sent him the text, and it basically was saying the same thing that the letter did, which is, we don't know for sure. I don't know. I know you've spoken to her before. It would sure be helpful for her to get some closure, blah, blah, blah. If you would take a DNA test, we could know whether or not you're a cousin or closer. And the response I got was cease and desist. Don't contact me anymore, or I will contact authorities.
Wow.
At which point I said, what authorities, sir?
Yeah.
And then he went into this whole thing about my family is former DEA. I can track you. which is a strange leap to make, especially considering he already had everything he had my home address.
Yeah.
He knew my name. I gave him all my credentials and links so that he could vet me.
It's amazing that there's that people can be that obviously this was a knee-jerk reaction on his part in terms of there's something he's trying to hide,
Well, absolutely. I mean, he chose to ignore the letter. He chose to block her.
And I guess in some way, that's his own prerogative and he can do that. But like, he doesn't need to be threatening. It's just like, I'm not interested in talking with you. I don't know.
Yes.
Just be polite about it.
Yes. And it got worse and worse. And the last thing he said was, I'm allowing you to quit. Be sure. What does be sure mean?
I don't know. I mean,
isn't that was the most sinister part of the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knew your job was so dangerous, Julie?
Who knew? Well, I did. So anyway, that's really as far as I can go. I mean, she is free to do whatever she wants, but as a professional, I can't hound people.
No, that's not your
crazy.
Job,
There we are. That was what happened. It's funny because it wasn't that shocking to me, but when I posted that, people were absolutely freaked out for me.
Right, because there was a threat about like tracking you and all of that,
Yeah.
And I also think it sounds like an extreme overreaction.
Yes.
To saying like, oh, I might have someone as a relative of yours, leave me alone.
Yeah. I mean, you do tend to get that because people think that you're a fraud too. And
true. But I mean, you don't always reach out to the people for the client, right? Like you give the client the information and let them do it, don't you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well, it depends. If they want to, I offer them that prerogative, and truth be told, I would prefer that they do it.
Yeah.
Some people are. So my company, as a policy, and my boss prefers to do it himself. And I think the main reason, well, first of all, he just thinks it's more professional. And second of all, a lot of the information that we get from a resource that is only available to private investigators. So if we give that information out to somebody, that's kind of an ethical quandary.
I see.
However, if I find that information and then can kind of reverse it and find that same information in the public forum, then it's public information.
Right. I just think that like a lot of people might be less suspicious of the person contacting them if the person contacting them has something personal at stake. Like they may be the relative as opposed to like, well, who are you? That
happens.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. And it was interesting because Cece commented in the group about it. Like, why are you contacting these people anyway?
Oh, did she? I didn't read all the comments. I just saw the post.
Yeah, she did. And it was interesting. And then my boss came in and responded to her. So they had a respectful, little back and forth about it.
Oh.
And he was, explained why the company does it that way. And truth be told, Jay is actually very good at it. He has a lot of success at it.
Right.
I don't have the confidence when I have somebody's very future in the palm of my hands.
Right.
And so I will do it, and I prefer to write a letter, as I've said often. But yeah, if I had my druthers, I would always have them do it.
Well, that was very interesting. So I'm kind of excited to hear the last part of Lisette's. Was it Austin?
Yes, Lisette Austin. And today we're going to have that after the break because it's the final part, but it's longer than usual because people would have committed mutiny if
split it for another 2 weeks.
Yet another cliffhanger.
So we're going to have a little longer interview segment this week. Is that?
Yes, we're going to have the final segment of Lisette's interview after the break.
Let's take a break. If you're enjoying our podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, or consider supporting us on our Patreon page, patreon.com/CutOff Jeans Podcast. Now back to Julie and me.
All right, we're back. Here is the finale of Lisette Austin's epic odyssey.
Part 4.
Part 4. It's fantastic. So much fun. It was fun. I've been editing it on the fly. And so a lot of it is new to me again when I listen to it after it's been so long. And she's really a fun person. So where we left off, she had launched into DNA and realized, because she started listening to the podcast, that you don't actually have to talk to people to figure out who they are. So she had suddenly realized at the end of this last one that the family she was searching was the wrong family, because the close cousin Michael, was actually an MPE. And that's where we were. So let's hear the conclusion.
Yana and I are like, what do we do now? But by now we've been listening to your podcast and we're like, we're going to go back to the matches. And now we're seeing everything in a new light. We're like, we've got to get these people to answer us. And Yana's like, no, in fact, I am not going to get G Harvey or J Harvey to answer me. I'm going to figure out who they are.
Yes.
Without one little tree.
Atta girl, Yana.
Yeah, Yana killed it. She was like, we're doing this. And she pretty soon figured out their first names. And she's like, I'm sure this is who this is. And she started building the heck out of the trees. Meanwhile, my job was to deal with another woman named Kimberly Stewart, who had popped up and said, hey, we're cousins. I don't know how. Do you know how? This is so great. I just joined Ancestry. This gorgeous woman in LA. And I was like, I have no idea, but tell me what you know. And at the time I was giving her all these Mitchell names and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Then I called her back or I pinged her and said, hey, you know what? We were in the wrong family. Can you tell me more? And she's like, well, my dad was raised, he wasn't raised by he was raised by his grandma or something. And so he's like, wait, I don't even know like his dad's side at all. But and he passed away last year, of course. So it was like, I'll have to ask my uncle. But you do look like some people I know in Seattle. I'm like, did you say Seattle? She's like, yes. And so she's like, I'm going to give you
You look like some people I know in Seattle?
Yes. And I was like, what the heck? And she's like, yeah, my dad had some family in Seattle, but I don't really remember how we're related.
Right.
Now, I had been building her tree at this point. Okay. Wait, and I'm looking at the Stewarts and I cannot figure out, there's no place. There's nobody crossing over to the other Harveys or anything. So I'm like,
let's pause for just a second.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
Yes.
So your first cousin.
Yes.
Turned out to be an NPE.
And he doesn't know at this point yet, correct?
Gotcha. Okay.
I do not tell him.
Gotcha.
But I don't even have the DNA back from his supposed cousin, who would be supposedly my sister.
Who you had dinner
But I
with,
already know, because we have confirmed pretty clearly, without seeing her account, that one of my cousin's sisters is in, I should be she should be matching.
Yes.
And in fact, she doesn't match him either. I think, he didn't look at that, but I just didn't even want to call him and talk about it. I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
So I just was like, we just got busy in this other direction. And so Kimberly Stewart, by the way, was matching me at 258 centimorgans. So we know she's a cousin, some kind of second cousin or first cousin once removed or something, but we just don't know how or where. And so of course we're looking, right? We're looking for that connection. So she leaves me with this and she said, I'm just going to go ahead and say his name because he's proud. I think he'd be fine with it. She goes, well, all I can tell you is I have some kind of cousin up in Seattle and the name is Robert Thomas. And I was like, thank you for those really ordinary names.
Yeah. Thanks once again, Bob Thomas. I'll get the book out and look for them.
So she gives me that. And then she got really busy. Some things came up in her life. Of course, I don't know that, but she just kind of disappears, right? She just stops communicating with me. So we never get that turn information about her dad. We had built her mom's side out. We built her dad's mom's side, but we don't know anything about her dad's dad. Yeah. So we cannot figure it out. We don't know. So we kind of have this unfinished tree over there. So meanwhile, on this other side, the Harveys, Yana has built such a great tree. Go, yay, Yana, thank you. She built such a great tree, and we're talking now like 5 times a day. We're texting continuously. I have so many notes from when I write my book. It's going to be great. I've saved everything. But we are having aha moments every minute. I'll spare those all for you now. But the main one was Robert Thomas. So she starts looking in the tree, and she's like, hold on, Lisette. There is a woman who had a Robert Thomas. And it was... the person, G. Harvey, her cousin had a son named Robert Thomas.
Yes.
And I was like,
bingo.
Could it be the same one?
Of course it could.
Right. And we're like, because of course, by the way, Kimberly in LA and the Harveys were not related to each other. which was great, right? Because we were like, wherever these people meet, we're going to find answers, right? We gotta find where they meet.
Yep, that's the special sauce right there.
That was it. So we didn't even know how good we had it in that standpoint, like that I had this, 2 lines trying to find where they meet. Okay, so this is the moment, though. This is the moment of my life, was when my friend calls me and goes, Lisette, you need to get on Ancestry right now. And I was like, why? And she's like, okay, so she goes, Ollie Bell, the cousin who has the son named Robert. I was like, yes. She's like, I found a picture of her. And I attached it to the tree. You need to go look at it right now. So I go and I open up Ancestry, and I open this picture of this black and white picture from clearly maybe the 40s. And I'm looking at myself.
Oh my God.
It gives me chills think about it right now.
Yeah, I'm getting chills thinking about it.
Because I wasn't prepared in a way, because we weren't even sure what we were doing. Kind of.
Right.
We just found Robert Thomas. Hey, look, one of her sons is named Robert Thomas.
Coinky dink.
But Yana's being so thorough, and she's grabbing every record and every, she's documenting everything and dotting her, I's and crossing her T's. And she's like, here's a picture, slaps it in there. And then she's known me since I was little, So immediately she's like, holy Toledo. So we're staring at this picture and we're just beside ourselves, right? And I mean, my eyebrows, my eyes, my eye shape, my cheeks, my smile, my nose, I've never seen anything like it. And I have seen pictures of my birth mother because of my connection with my brother. And I do look like her a little bit in the smile when I smile, but that's about it. You can see it, but you kind of have to look. Yeah. You know what I mean? You have to be like, oh yeah, there it is.
Yep.
No, this was whoa, are you kidding me? So now you know what we're doing. We're trying to find how we're going to connect with this person without seeming like stalkers. Fortunately, his page was super open and public.
Yeah.
So we're figuring out, we're stalking all of his family. And they do lots of family gatherings. And I'm seeing family gatherings with sweatshirts with this woman, Ollie Bell, with her face on it.
So she's like the matriarch.
40 people with her face on their sweatshirts.
Oh my God.
Celebrating her birthday 20 some years after she's passed. And I'm like, her sons, 2 of them, one of them is Robert, and the next one down, Willie Ray, could be the right age. And they were all in Seattle. So I end up, and another one actually could have been my birth father too. But we're in stalker mode at this point. We don't know how to find them. So we're by the way, we did see that Robert Thomas had Kimberly Stewart as a friend. Yes. So we're it's all coming together.
Oh, yeah.
She's still not answering me.
Okay.
We still don't know how they're related. But then there's one, I have 18 friends in common with Robert Thomas's son, who Kimberly mentioned, Joe Thomas, also another ordinary name. I have 18 friends in common with him. One of them is the owner of a gym in my old neighborhood.
Okay.
I don't think too much of that because, he's an owner of a black gym and, it's a black-owned business. And I'm like, of course, I feel like everybody knows him.
Right.
His name's Bull. Everybody knows Bull. He's from the South, super warm personality, amazing guy, really fun. So I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Another big moment. And I've left behind so many other interesting moments. But anyway, I get a call from Yana or a text, and she's like, hey, we need to talk. Remember that guy, Bull? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, you said you know him, right? I'm like, of course I know him. Well, he's friends with all of them. I'm like, I know that. It's no big deal. And she's like, I just figured out that his wife is Robert Thomas's daughter. And I was like,
my God.
Shut the front door. You know what I mean? I just get on the phone with Bull at that point. I have known them for 12 years. I know his wife. We worked out at their gym all the time. Super good friend. I taught Brazilian samba classes there.
Oh my God.
Okay. My cousin is someone I've known for 12 years. Oh. So I call Bull and I'm like, Bull, we got to talk. And where's Flo? He's like, what do you mean, where's Flo? I'm like, I have to talk. This is family thing. And so anyway, he gets excited right away. He's like, what do you mean, Kimberly Stewart? I'm a Stewart. I'm like, different spelling. No. He's like, I don't know who that is. And he gets super excited. And he's like, well, Robert Thomas is the nicest man I've ever met in my entire life. And I know he's my father-in-law, but I just have to tell you that these are some good people. You do not have to be afraid to contact these people. This is amazing. We have to figure this out. And I was like, okay. So Flo calls me back later that night. And she's like, what is going on? Something about my dad and DNA. And I'm like, so I'm breaking down the whole story with she's like, why do you know people in my family's names? Because I'm like, okay, look, your grandmother, Ollie Bell, I look like her. And then her mother, Lillian Johnson, she's like, what do you mean Johnson? She said, McElroy. I said, that's because Lillian married R.J. McElroy. She's like, how do you know that? I'm like, because I am up in your trees. I'm telling you.
I am a genealogist and I know these things now.
And she was getting chills. She's like, what? She's like, I got to call my dad. I'm like, yes, thank you. Please. Okay. So she calls Robert Thomas and we get on the phone for the first time. And he's like, hello, young lady. This is a nice man. He's like in his 70s.
That's what my dad said to me the first time he talked to me.
Or maybe I think he said something like that.
He said the same thing. He said, hello, young lady. Then he said exactly, only with an Australian
accent. I might
accent.
have made it up, but I think it was something sweet like that. But he's very nice. And he said, so my daughter tells me, and I'm so grateful like to have had this connection.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have to come in, in some weird way,
yes.
right? He was willing to talk to me. Turns out he's kind of a private guy. So he's like, oh, and I've been putting his name out here. That's okay. But he was like, I really, really am interested in what you're saying. So can we meet tomorrow or like Friday? It was like a couple of days later. I'm like, absolutely. I would love to meet with you. Yeah. And I said, but before we meet, can you just clear up one thing for me? How in God's name are you related to Kimberly Stewart? Because we cannot figure that out. And he was like, oh, that's easy. So my mom, Holly Bell, she turned out that her dad was kind of a little bit of a player, and he had a lot of ladies. And there were a few kids that, later in life,
sure.
my mom found out that she had some siblings, and they got reunited. And so Kimberly Stewart's dad, Roy Stewart, was her half sibling, and it all made sense. Okay. It was like, okay, so we're building the tree. We have the trees. We're making charts. We're looking at the DNA painter,
so
and we're like, oh my God, that would work if I'm one of these sons' kids.
Yes.
So I meet with Robert Thomas, and I'm thinking, and I look like him. I look like him, but there was a likely suspect in his brother. And to cut the story shorter, because there's a lot of interesting things, but basically they agreed. He called his brother, and his brother was willing to do a DNA test. His brother had been known. He's like, my brother pretty much only dated white women.
Oh, well, okay.
And there you go. Mm-hmm. So we ended up meeting a few days later, and we had this like pizza party DNA test party with with Robert, with his brother, and with my aunt. And I'll never forget it because and my husband was there, and my Aunt Mary's husband was there, and we were sitting there in Robert's house. It's only 15 minutes from my house, and they were just staring at me because, like, Willie Ray, his brother, just stared at me and just said to me, he goes, "You look like Mama." And I was like, I know. Like, and actually, I want to also tell you that when I went to the gym, I did finally go to the gym after meeting Robert the first time, and I saw Flo, and I held up a picture of they call her Big Mama. I held up a picture of Big Mama next to my face, took my glasses off, and Flo just burst into tears. And I started crying, and my husband started crying, and her mom was there, and she started crying. And then I remember when she was hugging me, she said, like, all that time wasted. And I was thinking, no, we knew each other that whole time. Like, it was so cool that we knew each other, know. But we still didn't know how exactly we were related, but we knew we were related, and that this was my grandmother. And so, so when they came in that night at the DNA test pizza party, and he's like, "You look like Mama," but even more, I look like this woman, my Aunt Mary. So I have these great photos of us, around the table, me explaining at with the laptop, telling the whole story, and it was really cool. And so we sent the DNA test off, and what's really ridiculous is Willie Ray wore a shirt that was like from Disneyland that said Dad on it. We didn't even notice until like later we were taking pictures, and I looked in my phone at the picture, and I turned around to him and I said, "Are you wearing a shirt that says Dad?" And we just all started cracking up. So he's like, "I really didn't mean to wear this today." But so I have these DNA test pictures with this guy with a big Dad. It says Dad.
That's hilarious.
But basically, it was just really amazing because I have to tell you, these people were like the warmest. Okay, I went into this with my only experience of reunion. Well, not true. I have my brothers, but I'd had this birth mother who really slammed the door on me. Yeah. And I went in definitely expecting the worst. I don't know if I was hoping for the best. And in fact, there were times where I was like, why am I even doing this? Because he's not going to know I exist. Mm-hmm. I mean, what if it was something really negative that happened? Do I even want to know this person?
Those are all things you need to think about.
You know, and I at some point, it just got too intriguing, you know, when Yana poking me, and then the little, oh, wait, he was born in Seattle. And, oh, wait, no, these Mitchells are, you know, there was a pastor who had this black church. And pretty soon I'm like lost in the story of it all. And I'm so excited. And at some point there'd be these little moments where I'd think, is this a good idea? But I felt like I was way too far
The train
gone.
had already left the station. Yeah.
And so I just get to this point where I'm like, I guess I'm all in. And, you know, Julie, like, thank God, because I did not anticipate what was going to happen to me, which was these people started showering me with love.
Oh. Oh my gosh.
I can't even talk about it.
That's amazing.
I mean, they were saying that first night, like, look, if this DNA doesn't come back right, we're just going to adopt you anyway at this point, because we just love you so much already. You're just such a light, you know, and such a great personality. And we're just so excited. And I was just like, what? And I really hit it off with Robert, and we would chat and sometimes on the phone, and he shared about the history of the family, and they did come from Arkansas. And by the way, Ancestry always did say I came from the Arkansas, Louisiana African-American community.
Okay.
And they were all born in Arkansas, most of them, and then they moved out west. He told me all that history, and he talked about Big Mama, and it turned out I lived about 4-minute drive from her in the 90s. I was born just about maybe 12 blocks from her house, where they all were, in the Central District of Seattle. And you know, they were like, we can tell you right now that if she would have known about you, you wouldn't have gone anywhere. She was called Big Mama because she took care of everybody in the neighborhood and brought everybody in, and people needed a home, people needed somewhere to sleep, needed something to eat. She was there. Oh, wow. She used to want to be a social worker, but she just couldn't do that. She had a lot of kids. There was like 11 of them. Some different dads and stuff like that, but they were all raised to be like, we're family, as opposed to the other family, the Mitchells. It was like, they're all raised by different moms. She took everybody. She was the glue. Right. She was the matriarch. Right. And I was just so proud to look like her. And everybody was struck by that. The family started lighting up. They didn't tell it too many people yet, but you know, they were starting to get excited. And I started to get to know Willie Ray, and we kind of figured out right before the DNA test back. Do you remember the issue with the polio and the arm? I held that detail back. But at the end, remember that name, Ronnie? I'll tell you one thing. There's so many crazy things. But it finally occurred to me, if there were two guys, I thought, wait, it was like right before the DNA test came back. And we started talking maybe a couple times a week. I said, did you ever run with a guy named Ronnie? He was like, oh, sure. Yeah, no, me and Ronnie, this one of my great friends. He was the other guy who used to date white girls. And, and so anyway, it ended up that I started going, okay, hold on a minute. So we got Ronnie in my records. We got this guy who ran with Ronnie. He's the right age. He was the right place at the right time. But he didn't remember, you know, I told him my birth mother's first name, and he didn't remember that name at all. And then he started telling me about another woman who he thought it was, and I was like, he's getting mixed up. But then finally it started to come to light because he called Ronnie. And Ronnie remembered my mother. And he said, don't you remember where we picked her up at the da-da-da? You know, he knew the whole story. And all of a sudden, my Willie Ray, it all came back. And I, for the first time, heard my origin story and what actually happened on the phone like 2 days before the test came back. And I knew it. I was like, this has to be right. Like, he's like, I remember her. And nothing bad happened. I believe him, actually, the way he talked about it, you know, that it wasn't, I mean, he's like, you know, whatever, young people doing dumb things, but it wasn't.
It was a little salacious, but it was nothing.
Right, right. And it turned out that Ronnie dated her after.
Oh.
And so it was more like a one-night thing with my dad, and then, you know, and Ronnie kind of came in to fill the gap afterwards. Because Ronnie's like, hey, do you mind if I talk to her? You know, so that's why she remembered that name to put down.
Oh.
She probably didn't want to say to her parents. There were two. She only told me that, you know?
Right. What about the polio thing?
We were talking, and he brought up, when I brought up the name Ronnie, he started going, oh no, maybe, I won't say any names, but he was like, oh my gosh, that's making me think of something. And I was like, what? This is before he called Ronnie. He's like, well, one time I was with his girlfriend. This would be horrible. Oh my gosh, what if, he's like, you're sure it's not this name? You know, I'm like, no, I know my birth mother's first name, you know. He's like, well, the thing is, I remember that I was with this girlfriend because she had a crippled arm. And I was like, what? And I started texting my husband, it's him, you know. And my husband's like, don't get excited. There could be more than one woman with a crippled arm. I'm like, what are you kidding? Well, turned out there were more than one.
I mean, that's crazy.
So like, I thought he's just mixed up.
You can't. Okay, if you were to put that in a screenplay, they would say no. You have to take that out because that's just not.
There were so many things. Oh, and I haven't even talked about all the things about the fact that once we started stalking this new family, there were, remember my cousin, the NPE, Michael?
Yes.
His mom was friends with one of the other men. So Jan and I spent a lot of time going through all the other men. There's like 6 men we're looking through going, which one looks like Michael? You know, because we've got, and did I tell you that when I first met Robert, I was like, Robert, I have to tell you the first day, like 3 hours we're together. I said, I have to tell you something because I'm showing him stuff in Ancestry and I don't know what to do with this big Michael, you know, my cousin at the top. And so I just say, I have to tell you something. When I come into this family, I'm bringing somebody in with me. Aww. And he was like, what? You know, like, there's 2 of us, and the other guy doesn't know yet.
Oh, my God.
He's like, oh, my goodness. He didn't even know how to process that. So he's like, okay, let's keep it between us till the DNA comes back for sure.
Yeah, one thing at a time.
And, you know, so DNA came back, 3 months ago, and, of course, he is my birth father. And by this point, we're already all getting to know each other. We did have a chance to get together in person a few times before the pandemic hit. And I've seen him, socially distant kind of visitation stuff. But the 11 kids too have passed away. But of, Big Mama's kids. But I have 8 aunts and uncles, 2 aunts and 6 uncles. Uncle Robert is the one I know the best, and he is a gem. From the beginning, he's written me messages that are so incredible. I call them loving tirades. I posted for the first time on Facebook kind of publicly about my family in honor of Juneteenth because I found out that I've been doing more research than they probably have even done. I've now got a Gamble family historian book. I've got all this information, and I found out who we're descendants from a woman named Mary, and it turns out the slave named Mary, her mother's name was Lisette. So my 5th great-grandmother's name is Lisette. I was named the same name as my 5th great-grandmother. I know, it's crazy. Like, so many things have happened. And so, I decided to post about that because of, celebrating emancipation of slavery, emancipation from slavery. And so my Uncle Robert wrote back to me, and the kind of things he writes, I've saved these. I should actually frame them and put them on my wall. He writes things like, I want you to know that was an amazing, touching, and heartfelt post you put on Facebook. Anyway, he goes on and he says, and the way you vividly explained your journey with the short version, I can't wait until I have the opportunity to expand the story with the love and bonding that we are all blessed to have with you, coming into our hearts, filled with an abundance of endless love. That has been nothing but pure joy knowing you are a member of our family. This entire family is blessed to have you, Lisette, to enjoy the balance of our time on Earth. And it's like, I have all these nieces and nephews, and they call me auntie. And
that's such a
I
jackpot.
Look like everybody.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love it.
I look like my dad, and but more than anything, I look like Big Mama.
Yeah,
and so
Big Mama.
I feel like I've gained this incredible. I was not looking for this. I didn't think I needed this. I didn't know, but now that it's here, I feel like I've stepped into myself in a way that was not possible. And my identity in general, and also my identity as a Black person. And it's just been really overwhelming and amazing. And it's really helped with this weird life of the pandemic, and all the other things. But it's really been amazing. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do about the whole birth mother thing, but I am getting it now that it does make a difference. Like, there is something about the genetic connection, and I'm not sure what it is exactly, but when I talk to my birth father on the phone, I could talk to him for hours. Like, his voice. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but I didn't expect this. And I do sincerely believe I got a lot of DNA from this side of the family. Oh my gosh, can I tell you one thing? Yeah. Because it has to do with something you said on your podcast. Okay. I feel like I'm so lucky I get to actually ask you, because maybe I remember this wrong. Okay. Do you remember there was an episode that you talked about trauma inherited through DNA?
Yes.
Okay. So I was born afraid of water. And my adoptive mom would wash me and try to wash me in the sink, and I would just scream bloody murder and just be a mess. And she didn't know what to do. Babies supposed to love baths and everything. And anyway, fast forward, I mean, it was a drama thing. I wouldn't take showers. It was really crazy to get me to learn how to swim. I used to scream people were killing me when they'd leave me with the private teachers. You know, it was a thing.
Yeah.
And so she decided, she's like, the only thing I can imagine is she drowned in a past life. Like, it was the 70s. She's like, you know, let's do something woo-woo.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm talking to my birth father. He's afraid of flying. And so he was talking about that because I travel so much. And he's like, man, it'd be cool to go with you to Brazil or something, you know. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be fun. But we'd have to knock you out for the flight, you know. He's like, yeah, maybe I'm just a coward. I'm like, you're not a coward. A lot of people are afraid of flying. He goes, yeah, but I'm afraid of a few other things. One of them is water. And I'm like, really? I still wasn't thinking that much about it. He goes, well, when I was 12, I literally almost drowned. And I was like, really?
Oh my gosh.
And he goes, yeah, I jumped off the wrong end of a platform in Lake Washington, and I was on the end. I thought I could stand up. I couldn't. I went under. I literally remember drinking water, like breathing water. He goes, I'll never forget how that felt, and I still have nightmares about it to this day. And they had to pull me out and help, you know, all that stuff, right?
Yep.
His friend saved him. And all of a sudden I just got chills because I listened to your episode.
Yes.
And I said, that was 8 years before I was conceived.
Trauma from your parents before you were conceived alters the shape of your DNA and their memories that somehow, I don't know the wording because I'm not a scientist. But that's the thing. That's amazing.
So, you know, this has been powerful, and I clearly look a lot like my bio grandmother, and I look a lot like the family, so I have a lot of the DNA. And so what I want to say about all that is it does make me revisit, maybe I want to get in touch with my birth mother again. She knows now. You know, I mean, I don't know, but my door is more open. Before I felt like, forget it, like I'm never going to do that. But my sweet other adopted out brother is always like, he's just so sweet. He's always like, Lisette, don't you want to do that though? I'm like, she doesn't even talk to you, Marv. You know, and he's like, yeah, but he goes, even if you just met once, he's like, there's something about that. And I was like, I don't know. But now I'm like, with no expectation of a relationship, but just, I'm like, maybe we'll see. But I always remember what my intermediary told me, like, it just keeps evolving, Lisette. And I'm like, she was right.
Right. Never say never.
I think it's not over yet. Who knows? But in the meantime, I'm going to do DNA travel and document it for my new podcast. I'm going to definitely go to Arkansas. I was supposed to go to Ireland. I was supposed to go to Sicily and Albania. I'm still saving to do that. I was going to go to South Africa. I was going to go, you know, whatever. I'll still do those things. But if I can't go to Ireland, I'm definitely doing that road trip to Arkansas. My birth father hates flying. So, hey, road trip it.
Road trip. Lisette Austin, thank you so much for talking to me. What a fantastic story. That is epic. That may be the epicest of the epic odysseys we've ever had.
Thanks for listening to the whole thing. Jeez.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisette.
Thank you, Lisette. Austin. That was a terrific interview. Great story. Well worth 4 segments.
The 4 weeks. Yeah, Lisette is great. And she did mention, I edited it out, but she did mention that she's about to launch a new podcast.
Oh.
In addition to her older podcast called Genetic Journeys.
I love that title.
About DNA travel. I do too.
Yeah.
I do too. So thanks, Lisette. And thank you, Yana, who is her friend who helped her and is also a listener.
You know, I want to remind our listeners, if you have a story that you'd like to share with us and share with Julie, please do. You know, we love to hear your stories. I know you guys all love hearing the stories. So reach out, Julie will give you all the contact information in a moment.
Yay. Tell people about yourself.
I'm Richard Castle. I have a website, richardcastle.com. And you can follow me on the Twitter @CastleSongs, where I often muse about the theater and very little else.
I'm Julie Dixon Jackson. You can find me on the Twitter @JulesJackson with 2 O's. Find the podcast on the Twitter @CutOffJeansPod. Find us on Facebook, Cutoff Jeans Podcast. Send me an email at julesjackson@cutoffjeans.com. Yeah, as Rich said, if you would like to tell your story on the show, I would love to talk to you. Just let me know. Give me a shout out. There's many ways to reach me.
Meanwhile, okay? I think everybody should know one thing.
The truth is in your jeans.